Former Pittsburgh Steelers running back Najee Harris just took another massive shot at Mike Tomlin and this Pittsburgh Steelers front office for their terrible decision making, their lack of production offense, and their lack of leadership on the team, while also breaking down every single reason as to why the Pittsburgh Steelers offense was trash these last few years. But first, before I get more into it and his quotes, make sure you subscribe to this channel and turn notifications for everything Pittsburgh Steelers news and updates. Also like this video. Now, let's get right back into it. So, Najee Harris, he left the Pittsburgh Steelers in free agency to sign a one-year deal with the Los Angeles Chargers. And since then, he has done multiple interviews talking about his new team, but also talking about his time in Pittsburgh. And we all know Najee Harris, when he speaks his mind. He says what he's thinking and doesn't hold back. And that's exactly what he just did in his latest interview with the Los Angeles Chargers. He was talking about his time in Pittsburgh, and he went off on the Steelers, basically the entire organization, Mike Tomlin, for their decision-making in all areas. So, I'm going to break it down into certain points. First of all, he was talking about the lack of leadership on the Pittsburgh Steelers, and he called that out first. So, let's get into what he said about that, because it was very interesting. He said this, and I quote, "We just didn't know anything on offense, really. We didn't have any identity. We had young guys coming in at quarterback. I was young. The team was young. I really didn't have nobody to almost learn from. On the offensive side, I'm just trying to look for people to pick their brain off of. It was an interesting year there. I'll just say that." End quote. So, he's basically saying that he had nobody to look up to on the offense side of the ball. Yes, he had Big Ben in year 1, but what did he have in year 2? What did he have in year 3? Nothing. So he had no one to look up to and talk and pick their brain on the offense side of the ball. And he felt as though that led to the lack of production on the Pittsburgh Steelers offense. So now let's get into something else. Let's get into his next topic that he talked about the Pittsburgh Steelers. Once again, it's the offense side of the ball. And he talked about the veterans on the team. And he talked and said this: "I think the veteran guy on that team was like a 2-3 year vet. He's still learning himself. I'm coming in and I'm just trying to look for people to pick their brain. And it was just defensive guys. I'd go to the defensive guys and talk to them. But there wouldn't be too much they could tell me about an offensive thing. Through my years, I learned a lot that I only learned firsthand." End quote. So, once again, that quote proves that lack of leadership on the offensive side of the ball was hurting the development of Najee Harris and hurting the production of the Pittsburgh Steelers offense as a whole. And the reason for this, once again, is the young players coming in. Usually they have a veteran to look up to. They have to pick their brain. They'll tell them stuff that they need to focus in on and stuff that they have to be aware of. But when you're a young guy like Najee Harris, and he's basically saying, I had to learn everything firsthand. All the experiences I went through on the football field, off the football field, I had to teach myself. There wasn't someone else teaching me anything. I went to the defensive guys, like basically TJ Watt, Cameron Hayward, but there's only so much they could say. They're not offensive players. So, before I get more into that and break it down even further, let me go into the last quote by Najee Harris about his time in Pittsburgh. Here's what he said, and I quote, "My time in Pittsburgh, it was a lot of learning things, a lot of learning experiences, playing for Mike T, playing in that division. There were a lot of ways I didn't even realize what the NFL was really about until I came to Pittsburgh. I don't want to go into detail with it, but I feel there was a lot of stuff in my game where I could have elevated more and I could have did more. I feel like I just didn't get it done. I feel like I was obviously missing something. It was interesting years there. I'll just say that. Interesting years." End quote. So, that quote basically says it all. He's basically saying and calling out the Pittsburgh Steelers front offense. He's not directly calling out Mike Tomlin or Omar Khan, but basically indirectly calling them out for not putting him in the right position and basically the team in the right position to actually win and succeed. He basically is calling them out, saying the lack of leadership on this team, the lack of players you're surrounding this team with on the offense side of the ball is leading to under-winning and the Steelers not being able to produce at a high level in the league and not allowing him as a player to actually produce, and basically calling out the system as well in terms of the offensive coaching staff, basically not putting them and him in the right position to succeed. And to be honest, it is completely true. Because when you look at the Pittsburgh Steelers offense, they had Matt Canada for 1 year, knew he wasn't a good offense coordinator, wasted another year with him, decided to fire him mid-season, had offensive quarterbacks coach take over, running backs coach take over, and then they bring in Arthur Smith, implement a whole new offense, and then his offense is still struggling. So the Pittsburgh Steelers' whole entire thing on the offensive scheme of things has just not been good. The decision making in terms of the hiring by Mike Tomlin and Omar Khan just have not been good in terms of who they've bringing in. But also not just that, they're not bringing in anyone in terms of the quarterback position group either that could get it done. I'll get more into this in a different video, but they had Big Ben didn't know what they're going to do after him. They knew it was his last season. And then they move over to Kenny Pickett, who you drafted a third-round quarterback in the first round. Decide that he's the guy. That's who you believe is the future of this franchise, but in reality you don't, because then Mitchell Trubisky starts the season, 4 games in, Kenny Pickett takes over, Kenny Pickett leads the team, and then the next season, Kenny Pickett's doing terrible, and then Mitchell Trubisky takes over again, and then Mason Rudolph takes over, leads the Steelers to the playoffs, and then Mason Rudolph leaves in free agency. You bring in Justin Fields, you bring in Russell Wilson, have them compete, but then in reality, Justin Fields starts the season, is doing decent, then you move over to Russell Wilson takes over for no reason, so it just doesn't make sense what the Pittsburgh Steelers are doing. They don't know if they want to go young, they don't know if they want to bring in a veteran at the quarterback spot, and all this decision making is just terrible, and it's leading to the lack of production on the Steelers offense, and Najee Harris is basically calling out indirectly but directly at the same time, and calling out the decision makers like Mike Tomlin, Omar Khan, and just the front office in general. And to be honest, it's deserved, because the Pittsburgh Steelers the last few years just look like they don't know anything what they're doing. Also on the offensive line in terms of protecting the quarterback or run blocking has not been good until basically last season. Every single time Najee Harris gets the ball, it seems like he's touched immediately behind the line of scrimmage, and he always has to break off tackles. So I understand where he's coming from in terms of him not developing in his own way in the NFL, because he's just not put in a position to succeed, and he's basically saying that. And to be honest, when you look at what he's done, getting over 1,000 yards with this terrible offense line actually says something. And we all look at Najee Harris like a non-explosive back. But in reality, how can you be explosive if you're going to hit behind the line of scrimmage every single play? It just doesn't make sense. So hopefully now he goes out and succeeds with the Chargers. And to be honest, when you look at what he's saying about the Steelers, you could look at him trashing the Steelers. But in reality, it's calling them out, and hopefully they change stuff because of it. These players, when they leave, if they expose some stuff, then hopefully there's some changes made, and they just don't keep doing the same thing. So I look at this situation and what he's saying as a good thing, not a bad thing of what he's trying to do in the situation, even though he's trashing the Steelers. So anyway, Najee Harris, he leaves for the Chargers in free agency, signs a 1-year deal with them. And to be honest, his system that he's going to with the Chargers seems like a better system than the Pittsburgh Steelers on the offense side of the ball in terms of the running game, and what they were able to do with J.K. Dobbins turning around his career after he left the Ravens to join them last season. Hopefully, Najee Harris is able to do the same thing, kind of rejuvenate him, even though he's got over 1,000 yards in 4 straight seasons, the only running back in the NFL to do so. Even though he's done that, hopefully he could get rejuvenated and break even more and go over 1,200, go 1,500 yards. And his offensive game is able to step up, and he's able to see an increase. This is also not the first time that Najee Harris, since he's left the Steelers, has called them out. He's called them out last week as well when he first left, basically saying that the offense is trash. And once again now in his recent interview is saying the exact same thing. So let me know your thoughts down in the comments below about Najee Harris and him saying the lack of leadership, the lack of basically offense in general is a front office issue in terms of them not bringing in certain people and not setting them up for success, but setting them up for failure. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below about his comments in general, and also how you feel about him leaving. Did you want him to leave? Did you not? Let me know your thoughts. Also, make sure you subscribe to the channel and turn notifications for everything Pittsburgh Steelers news, updates, highlights, analysis reports, everything surrounding the Pittsburgh Steelers. I cover it, every new free agency signing. I will or have already covered it, so go ahead and check out the videos on the channel. And there's more to come with all the rumors and news as well. So stay tuned. There's a video dropping a little bit later today on a new Pittsburgh Steelers free agency pickup. But until then, I'll see you guys all later. Like, comment, subscribe, turn notifications. I'm out. Peace.